Welcome back. It's been a bit, but we're here with Final Fantasy number 5. An interesting entry in the series, kind of a black sheep to be honest. You know, 5 and 6 are probably the most poorly treated in the entire series. 5 a little more so than 6. 5 is the one that not a lot of people have gotten around to. 1, because it never came out. We got Mystic Quest instead, if you saw the last one. You know, the only modern way to play 5 and 6 are the crappy phone ports. And I haven't talked much about those, but I think I have to a little bit right now. It's been an issue for a long time. Square constantly ports all these games, but they kind of seem to have settled with just the phone games. They have clashing, horrible art styles. They have bad UI covering the screen, and it controls bad because it's a phone game. Not much you can do about that. Well, the Steam version is still the mobile games, so you could have fixed it for that, but they just did the bare minimum and just put it there and let people try to figure it out themselves with mods maybe. They don't care. Now, we are getting pixel remasters. They announced those at E3. The first one's already out, and it's not so bad, it seems. I mean, the graphics aren't so great. They're better than the mobile versions of 5 and 6 that we've had. So whenever 5 and 6 come out, maybe those will be a good way to do it. You know, it's not going to have any of the extra content, so that's weird. I don't know how much they're going to change. They're not talking much about what these pixel remasters will truly be. But the first game doesn't include any of the extra stuff that was added in like the 3 remakes that game got, so who knows. In my research, it turns out that Final Fantasy V Advance is the definitive way to play this game. First one not available in English in Super Nintendo. It was released on the PlayStation with horrible translation issues apparently and bad loading times because of the PlayStation. This is the way to go. The only downside to this one is music is not up to par as you might like because it's a Game Boy game. I'm sure I'm editing this video now and like putting all the different music tracks in that I usually do, and I'm thinking, man, I missed out on some of those tracks because the music's really good in this, but I know it was better in the other versions. That's what I'm saying. There's no truly definitive way to play this game. Will the pixel remaster be? No, because it's not going to have extra content, so we're still going to be in this limbo of like, why can't we just play 5 and 6 correctly? Square? Remake those instead of another remake of 7. We'll get to that. So the biggest draw in of Final Fantasy V is we are returning to the job system. The system where you put on a new hat and change it up. Remember that? Right? It wasn't too long ago. Final Fantasy III came in with the job system. Well, here's the twist. The way jobs level is a lot different. Like in 3, it was basically another XP bar that you level to 100. This is a lot different. Every level for every job requires a different amount of job XP. Some of them are very simple, some of them are more complex and will cost more. Once you level that up, you now have the ability to equip that job element to another job and stack your hats to the sky. Well, not really. You can combine 2 jobs basically and mix and match as you please to try and figure out what's the optimal strategy for each fight. Now, this is really interesting, intuitive, and fun. I was so surprised when I heard 5 had job system. I was like, oh, because I've been burned with that basically every installment that had it. But the way you can combine things and the fact that you don't have to dedicate yourself to one job, you can train all different jobs and you'll be rewarded as such. In fact, the game encourages you to do that. That's kind of like the whole point. That's where all the strategy comes in. You choose which jobs are right, which combos are right for each character. And it gets really deep because there's 4 characters, and it was, I don't know, it got to me. I really liked doing it, which is crazy for me because I just said in the Final Fantasy IV review, I prefer games that don't give you customization freedom. It just gives you what you get, and then you know the experience is tailor-made for you and it's fine. But I'm seeing it now. Like, I complain every time about, the customization ruins the game, it makes it less fun. because I know I'm choosing wrong, but really, I just haven't played a game that did it right until now. I mean, this job system, it outdoes Final Fantasy III in literally every way. Like, I'm pretty sure this is just objectively better. I can't imagine anybody preferring 3 to 5. So from a gameplay perspective, yeah, this is probably the best I've played so far. But what about the story? Well, you have a lot of decent, interesting characters in this. I will say, the main characters know Cecil, or I guess it was Cecil. I'm calling him Cecil. In 4, the story really revolved around Cecil, and in 5, it's more about the whole cast. The main character's name is Bartz, with a Z. Probably my favorite name in the series so far. In fact, in Japan, they had to change it because his name is actually Butts. I'm not joking. The main character of Final Fantasy V's true name is Butts. So yeah, you get points for that, but like, I was waiting the whole game for him to reveal his like shocking past or cool character development or anything like that, and it didn't happen. Bartz is just kind of a dude. He's just a guy. Like, he's fun. He's got a personality, but he doesn't have anything interesting to hook you. The one thing that this game does differently for the characters is you have your party and nothing changes with them. 4 had this thing where people would swap in and out constantly. Some things would happen and they'd have to leave or whatever. And that was fun. That was their way to make the gameplay a little more varied because there was no job system. You had to be set with what you got. So they basically gave you new jobs for that. But I think the trade-off is that I didn't really care too much about the characters. I mean, I did more so than any other game before that, but that's not saying much. In 5, you have your 4 guys, and they stick with you to the end. They all have their personalities, backstories, reveals throughout, except really Bart's, which is what I was saying. You got Lena, you got Ferris, you got Galuf. I'm not going to pretend like I'm pronouncing any of these names right, but they're all great. I think they all outdo all of the side characters from 4. So it's like, main characters a little less, but the side characters a little more. The story, I think, overall is better in 4. I mean, the villain is just... His name is X-Death. You never see his face. He's a night guy, so he's always covered. He's X-Death. Sounds evil, right? Well, he's just evil. He's just a bad guy who wants to, like, merge the worlds and create an interdimensional force that makes him rule over it and freeze all the monsters or anything, and there's something there, but never really amounts to too much. So I really like the characters. I think I grew attached to those side characters more than anybody in the series so far. And there's a few other side people who show up every now and then, like... Oh, what's that? Is that a Sid update? Sid is here! This time, he's tall. He's got white hair and a beard, and he is kind of a stoic, more of a scientist kind of engineer. But he does get his hands dirty. He fixes boats with lightning speed, and he modifies your boat, and he does all that stuff for you. He's got a grandson named Mid. Sid and Mid, they're a dynamic duo in this game. He's like a little nerdy kid with the glasses, and he's like, well, actually, if you do it this way, la la la. They're a good duo. I really enjoyed them. I don't know if it's my favorite Sid. I mean, you could play as Sid in the last one, so I don't know. But it's a good Sid. It's a solid Sid. Sid. Like I said, this game has a few interesting moments. There's one that really stuck out to me, because the game mostly takes itself seriously, but you kind of fight X-Death at a midpoint, and you think that you're gonna save the world there, but okay, it hasn't been that long, so probably not gonna happen. You move on, and you go into a cave, and you talking, and Lena is like, geez, I got this splinter, geez, oh man. She just talks about how she got a splinter and it hurts. And you're like, all right, we're busy doing something, so bye. And then you get to a point where you're talking with this turtle lady who is a turtle. She's talking about how you gotta save the world, and then Lena's like, oh god, my splinter, it hurts so bad. And we're just like, pull it out, I don't know, it's a splinter. We've just fought a dragon. And then all of a sudden, the splinter goes like, and X-Death appears, and he's like, haha, I turned myself into a splinter so I could follow you into this turtle's domain. And now I have all the knowledge I need to merge the worlds, and haha, I'm evil. Just like all this story stuff starts happening, and I'm just like, he turned himself into a splinter? That never happens throughout the game at all. I never forgot that moment. It's just, why did he turn himself into a splinter? So yeah, the story, it's serviceable, it's pretty good, better than 3, not as good as 4. Characters might be better than 4. Really, that's just like, it's so close, it's really your opinion. This game is all about the gameplay. That job system, it was so cathartic, man. Like, all those years ago, all those videos ago, Final Fantasy II, like, this is what it wanted to be. It wanted to give you that freedom. But every game has failed when it's done that. I shouldn't say failed, but like Final Fantasy II is bad, man. It doesn't work. 3 comes in and it's like, okay, jobs now, we've streamlined it a little bit, but it's still, you kind of risk it all on the jobs that you choose, and if you don't level up the right ones, you're wrong, and it's just like, not worth it. And then 5 is like, no, you can really do this however you want. I mean, I guess you'll probably need a white mage. Like, you're always gonna need a white mage to heal. Maybe it's not fair because I have the knowledge of all the last ones. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm gonna need a damage guy, probably gonna need a black mage, gotta have a white mage. But even if you choose a class that doesn't end up being that great for you, you can even master it. You can level it up all the way fairly quickly, jump into a new job and start mastering that. It encourages you to switch it up as much as possible. Like mastering, we'll talk about mastering. Some of the cool jobs they added a blue mage, which is like a learning mage. Certain attacks that enemies use on you, you can learn and now use to your advantage to yourself. They've added time magic, which is not really a new addition and technically nerfs white magic. I mentioned in 4 that there were way too many spells I never wanted to use. So time magic, stuff like slow, stop, float is time magic for some reason. Teleport is time magic. Like, they just kind of took half of the white mage library and made it time. And I guess that's cool. But I don't know, I kind of like, white magic is nerfed now, basically. Yeah. You know, it's worth training a time mage. I had fun doing it, but I could have just had all that stuff in white in the last game. I don't know. You have an infinite inventory? I think? There was no storage system. There's no fat chocobo. It's just, like, whenever I looked in the menu, I could scroll down for days and it wouldn't stop. And I never sold an item. I never threw away an item. I just held everything in there. What a concept. I could just carry all my items. But yeah, I can't stress enough how fun it was to synergize these classes and make sure they meld together and pick the right one that works for the boss and deal tons of damage and just be super defensive while you're at it. By the end of the game, you discover that freelancers, which is like the job you start with, which is a non-job, it's just like nothing. Turns out they can equip multiple abilities from your other classes and all of the inherent abilities of classes that you've mastered throughout your quest. So you get rewarded for everything you do. My Bartz was a monster. He had, I leveled up his knight, which allowed other classes to equip swords that they wouldn't normally be able to, like Excalibur. I got the two-handed ability, which allows you to wield weapons with 2 hands for double damage. I got the ninja, which allows you to dual wield 2 weapons at the same time. I equipped weapons that allow you to use the weapons twice, so a total of 4 attacks. I got the Berserker, which allowed me to do increased damage while lacking control of the character, so he just goes crazy and kills things, which is already what I would do with the character. And I equipped an item that gives him haste to start out with, so he goes like twice as fast as all the other characters. I was doing like 16,000 damage before anybody else made a move. That's one of my characters. I had another who was like a black mage, time mage, and a blue mage. And then I had my white mage was also a summoner, Like, everybody was pulling their weight and doing tons of crazy mix match stuff by the end of the game. It's so satisfying. And that's the thing, man. Gameplay is king. The story in 4, it's better. But like, man, the gameplay in this is so much more fun. And I can't believe I'm saying that, because I prefer linear non-freedom style games. But that's how it is. Like Final Fantasy IV, that's the one that appears in all the top 10 games of all time lists. Best RPG, best Final Fantasy, it's a contender. People don't talk about 5 that way, but you know what? Final Fantasy IV, that's brilliant. But I like this. It's like Final Fantasy II was finally figured out, fully realized, and it was great. And you know what? Gotta go back to that Mystic Quest question at the end of the last video. Does that game prepare you for 5? Or were Americans not prepared for 5? I think we could have handled it. The concept is you get an ability, you can equip the ability to another job. I don't know how we couldn't have handled that. Bums me out, but you know, game's playable now, just not in a very good way. Good times, good game, solid game, highly recommended. I feel like people don't recommend 5. They say you gotta go 4. Maybe start with 4. Maybe that is good, but then get to 5, and you'll see how it evolves. Of course, I hear that 6 is even better than both of them in some people's opinion. I'll find out about that next time, huh? I'm getting like sweaty in here. One last little tidbit in the credits. You can see that monster design, Tetsuya Nomura. The man is here. I think he worked very, very smallly on like 4, but like he's designing things now for 5. He's coming up. The man who took the golden age of Final Fantasy and made it like even more golden somehow, and now people hate him. But you know, that's a story for another day. Final Fantasy V is great. Play it. Get the Pixel remaster. It'll probably be fine. I didn't honestly play much of the extra content. I had my fill of it, like, by the end. I definitely did all the optional stuff up to the end. I didn't do post-game stuff. That's what I mean. I didn't do any post-game super bosses, because I'm still not that good, even though I was doing all that damage and stuff. I was satisfied with the ending of the game. It was great. So yeah, check it out. Yeah, and then they didn't waste no time. The next game was Final Fantasy VI. The next game was Final Fantasy VI.